After a fall session that saw the BC United drop to third place in opinion polls, its leader remains upbeat, insisting his party is poised to make a comeback in next year's election. CTV's Rob Buffum sat down with Kevin Falcon to reflect on the year behind and what he'll do if he's elected premier.
Kevin Falcon says he's not buying the recent opinion polls that show John Rustad's BC Conservatives have surged ahead of his party.
Polls are really about confused voters not yet understanding that the BC Conservatives are a totally separate party than the federal Conservatives.
Minted as the leader of the BC Liberals in February 2022, Falcon oversaw the party's name change to BC United this April. He says there's enough time before the next election, scheduled for October, to turn things around.
This is a marathon, not a sprint. And so, trust me, we will get the message out when the timing makes sense, and we'll make sure that by the time the next election rolls around, people know exactly who BC United is.
He points to fundraising as a better indication of how British Columbians would vote when it counts.
I mean, we raised more money in one day than the BC Conservatives did in the last 12 months. And I think it's important to understand that. They've raised $150,000 in the last 12 months. We've raised $3 million, just below the NDP.
As for a merger with the BC Conservatives to avoid vote splitting on the right,
we've already got a coalition. It's called BC United. We're a coalition of people that might vote federal Liberal or Conservative federally or the Green Party federally.
On the issues, Falcon said the NDP government missed the mark with its housing legislation it introduced that dominated the fall session.
Most of this legislation absolutely will not get the result that they want. If we want more affordable housing, you have to make it less expensive. It's not that much more complicated.
On health care, Falcon doubled down on calls for Health Minister Dix to be booted from the job.
Somebody needs to be held accountable for this horrific situation we have where patients are literally dying trying to get care in this province. It's heartbreaking.
He maintains the best way to help British Columbians battling soaring costs is by eliminating fuel taxes and cutting back the carbon tax.
Number one, we're going to scrap the carbon tax on all home heating fuels. If it's good enough for the East Coast that heat their houses with oil, it's good enough for the West Coast, but we'll take it off of oil, propane, natural gas.
Regarding political wins this fall, he cites changes to the laws around open drug use.
Forcing the NDP to back down on their reckless decriminalization that allowed people to openly use drugs in parks, playgrounds, beaches.
He doesn't think there will be an early election, as some have speculated.
David Eby, to his credit, has actually said more times than I can count that he is going to stick to the fixed election date, and I actually believe him in this case.
And says when electors do vote, his party will prevail.
Success is winning. You know, politics is a zero-sum game, and I just think I am so confident because I travel this province and I get direct feedback. It's way more important and valuable to me than any poll.
10 months at most from the only poll that counts, the leader of the official opposition maintains his party's fortunes will climb rapidly in the new year. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.